I'm Deborah Wright, and I have the privilege of introducing you to an honoree of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame in the area of social change, Felecia Gaston. Felecia, welcome. You serve as the Executive Director of the Performing Stars of Marin. Could you tell us a little bit about that program?
Yes, Performing Stars started in February 1990, and its main purpose is to provide professional training in the arts to children who live in the low-income areas of Marin. We started out with 18 kids on scholarship at the Marin Ballet, but after we saw the interest and the needs of all the kids, we found out that we needed to provide a variety of classes. So now we serve 200 kids ages 3 to 17 in a variety of classes, from baton twirling, drill team, theater. We incorporate social skills into their training. We provide music classes to preschoolers. We get scholarships for children to take private lessons. And they're just doing a number of things. The kids live from Novato to Sausalito now.
I could see from reading some of your history that the progression of where you started and coming to this point, that there's a thread of your own love of dance and performance and ballet. Where did that start for you?
Well, it goes back to when I was about 6 years old, growing up in Marietta, Georgia, and at that time segregation was real prevalent. And I remember wanting to take ballet when I was a little girl, but at that time it wasn't offered to black children. And I remember the desire of wanting to take ballet. And I thought, when I see these little kids, and I'm thinking that they may have the same desire, but they may not have the same issues as segregation, but there are other things that prevent them from taking classes. For instance, funding or monies to pay for classes, transportation, being able to have the proper uniforms. And it's just giving them the opportunity to say that I have a chance to do what I want to do.
A quote that fascinated me in some of your material that several people referred to was the fact that you wanted to make a point of saying poverty doesn't have to be ugly. Tell me where that comes from for you.
Well, the arts is one way that you can cross boundaries, and I find that arts and even different varieties of food really brings all type of people together, because it gives them a chance to get to feel comfortable and getting to know who a person really is. It seems to make people more relaxed, and it's a good way for people to interact with each other. And so that is really part of why I grew up, in a sense, not, I guess I could say poverty, but we didn't look at it like that. My grandmother and my mother and great-grandmother played a very big role into my life, so I really feel like those have been the super role models in my life. My grandmother was a seamstress, and she worked hard, and she had a garden that we always had to work in, my sisters and I and my cousins, and it was just part of our life of getting up in the mornings on Saturdays and having to do a lot of chores. So we didn't get a chance to watch a lot of cartoons or anything. We had to get up, shine the silver, iron the pillowcases, and then do certain things in the garden. And to this day, I have a garden at a classroom of mine in Marin City, and I call it Big Mama's Garden. And I find myself doing quite a bit of things that she really embedded in me. My mother worked at the post office. As a matter of fact, she just retired after 30 years there this year. And I remember she worked all the time, but she was always there for me and my sisters until she remarried and we moved from Georgia to Los Angeles. And so all of that just being, moving from one place to another, migrating, but always instilling to our family that you have to achieve, going to church, putting us in charm school, on Wilshire Boulevard. Those were the things that made a big difference. So even though we may not had a lot of monies, it didn't feel like that.
In the move to Los Angeles, your family context shifted somewhat.
Yes.
And the environment that you met there was very different. How did that affect the continuation of your dreams as you reached adolescence and into adulthood?
Well, that's a really good one because I remember coming to Los Angeles December 1st, 1969, and it was right after the Watts riot. So there was a lot of dynamics going on. So moving from a real small town in Georgia to a big town, big city in Los Angeles with all of this energy, with racism and discrimination and cries of violence, it sort of kind of shell-shocked me for a while. And I think that's why my mother and father, stepfather decided, well, we need to provide a safe environment for my sisters and I. And that's when she decided, well, why don't they go to charm school? So we would get on the bus and just, you know, ride to Wilshire Boulevard. And so at that point, I knew that they were trying to lead us into a positive direction. And it really transferred to a lot of things why I'm doing what I do now.
And it sounds like the early model for a lot of the programming aspects of what has become Performing Stars of Marin were rooted in that charm school situation.
Charm school and church.
And church.
As a matter of fact, my mother and grandmother was part of the first black female gospel group in Georgia called the Sacred Hearts. So I do remember listening to all this music as I was growing up, and all these visiting gospel groups that was coming from Mississippi and Louisiana, and they would always come to my grandmother's house, and she would prepare these big meals for them all the time. So we had a chance to meet a lot of positive, especially most of the time it was men vocal groups. So that was something that stands out with me too.
How'd you make the move from Southern California to the Bay Area? What brought that on?
I came for a visit to San Francisco.
And got hooked.
I fell in love with the city, and I decided that I wanted to pursue a degree in college. So I came up here, and my major was geography. As a matter of fact, I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I studied at Cal State Hayward and San Francisco State, and I actually took cartography. In a sense, I feel like I am doing cultural geography in a sense. And I landed in Marin City because I was still working part-time, and I was real involved in San Francisco doing a lot of volunteer work for the Black Chamber of Commerce, and I actually started a PR business called Migrations Limited, where I would just help organizations do special events. So I started coordinating art receptions for visiting artists from Haiti and from Brazil, and then I started doing volunteer work with the San Francisco International Film Festival and started putting on receptions for visiting filmmakers that came to town. As a matter of fact, I gave Spike Lee his first reception when he was a student filmmaker. And
for the film festival?
For the film festival. And I would put on receptions for the visiting filmmakers from Africa. So I always wanted to get to know all these international people. And another reason is I noticed when the black filmmakers would come to town that there really wasn't anyone to welcome them. The hospitality wasn't, I think, the same that was provided for other filmmakers. So I said, well, our community should provide this hospitality for them and also give some outreach and invite the community to come and see their films. So I just was doing all that volunteer work, and then I started volunteering for the Women in Film and Television. And next year, you know, I was putting on events for Cicely Tyson, and we did a show with black female executives in television, and it just started moving from there.
What brought you over the bridge into Marin?
I had a friend who was working at a community development corporation, and she was going on vacation, and she said, do you want a part-time job temporarily? And I said, sure, and I came to Marin City, and I fell in love with it because it reminded me of Georgia. And I said, this is like home, because being in the city, it was the fascination of living there and with the tall buildings and all of that, but I still needed a sense of family and home, and I've been there for over 15 years now.
And it sounds as though it was a family and church context that it would underscore constantly the message of you can do and be who you want to be, who you're called to be. That the obstacles of the rest of the culture that may say a young African American, a girl, can't be this or can't do this, were put aside by that counter message of yes, you can.
That's it, and working hard. You don't do it without working hard. So some of the things, when I look at the kids that I deal with, that when they come to practice and they're learning routines, and then they gear up to a major performance, and then they have to get dressed up, and they become a family themselves. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to a principal at Bayside School who told me that she see a difference in the children that's involved in Performing Stars. There's a difference of a family. They seem to be a lot more self-confidence, more aware of themselves, a high self-esteem. They're not afraid. They have this social awareness, and they like interacting with other people. And when they go to perform outside of their areas, that also make them feel they're representing these areas that sometimes are stereotyped as their children are badly misbehaved, or they can't learn, or they don't know how to dress or something. But this is why it's important that they are dressed well when they come out, and they feel good. And so they're like ambassadors for their communities.
In this culture today, there are those within society who would say funding of the arts is a luxury we can't afford anymore. If you look at the controversy nationally over the NEA funding or things like that. And yet what you seem to be showing is there's a direct connection between the sense of learning performing arts and the sense of self and inner confidence. How do you communicate that to your kids so that they think something beyond the fact that they're just learning a performance art per se?
Well, I feel that once they have that self-esteem, that self-confidence, they're proud, then they could go and achieve other things in their life, because the arts is the one way to bring all those things to them, and then they can say, yes, I can be a set designer or a costume designer, or I might be a computer programmer. But first they have to feel good about themselves. I was real shy in high school, and when I look back over that, I'm thinking, boy, if I would have just had art programs, after-school programs, or programs when I was in preschool, then I might have went on and decided to audition for the Dance Seat of Harlem. So life passes you on if you do not feel confident. And a lot of times you could be wealthy and you don't have confidence. It's hard to get up in public to speak. No matter what background you come from, there's people who take classes in how to speak. But if you start out early feeling good about yourselves, then you transfer that in other parts of your life, and then it helps you to be a stronger person overall, and then you know how to make choices to make yourself succeed.
When you're learning a performance art, twirling a baton, some kind of acrobatic or gymnastic skill or something, there are a lot of times you fall, a lot of times you drop the baton. How do you use those situations of failure to teach kids about confidence and success?
Just pick up the baton and keep twirling and keep smiling. Gymnastics, if you don't do your flip just right, just keep going. Don't stop and get frustrated on stage, especially when you have so many people looking, because most of the time people in the audience may not even know, but if you show it on your face, they may know it. And that's why it's important for the kids to perform in public, because once they do it one time and they get the applause, then they're ready to do it the next time and the next time and the next time. So when we have a major annual performance, which we usually do at the Jewish Community Center, we have all these kids doing their performance like a big recital, and all the families come and all the funding sources and all their friends, and that way it gives everyone a chance to see what they've learned, because it's important. You could be in rehearsals and practice, but it's nothing like doing it, the real thing on stage. And once people give you that applause and they say, that's my little baby up there, or, funding sources see where their money is going, and majority of the people who's been followed us from when the program first started, so they have seen the program grow.
They're seeing the real results.
Yes, and that's why I feel we have lots of supporters throughout Marin.
In addition to family members and perhaps the church community that you referred to before, were there people who were your mentors or your idols, perhaps even, who were in performing arts that you looked to and thought, I want to do that, I want to be like that?
Arthur Mitchell with the Dance Seat of Harlem. He is one person that I've always admired. When I see the work that he does with the dancers, and I remember seeing him on 60 Minutes one time, and he talked about how he was on his way to Brazil, and that was the day Martin Luther King was assassinated, and he decided that I have to go back to Harlem and do what I have to do. And every time they come to visit at Zalabach Auditorium, then I make sure that we take a group of kids over there. And for the last two performances, we actually have set up a soul food reception for him and his dancers in the green room.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. So he would be one of my main role models.
Okay. What is it that is that piece inside of you that keeps you motivated towards the dream when others would fall by the wayside and quit?
When I see the developments in the children, when I see that there was a little girl that was 3 years old that was super shy and didn't want to leave her grandmother to come to class, and now she was involved in, they start off like in a preparatory program, and then next you know they're on scholarship at the Marin Ballet, and they may be the only little black girl in class, but that is what keeps me going. What keeps me going is little boy named John Lam, who was 4 years old when he started, Vietnamese boy living in the canal, and he started taking ballet lessons, and now he's 13, and he received a scholarship to go to the San Francisco Ballet this past summer, taking classes 6 days a week, and writes letters every year to say how proud he is of his accomplishments. Or when I see these teenage boys who are working every Saturday and they're not getting in trouble in a negative way with law enforcement, then I know that's the difference, and that's what
That
keeps
it's
me
been
going.
worth it.
Yes.
Yeah. What are the special things that you would want to hand in a sort of metaphoric baton to the girls that are in your program today that says, take this, hang on to it, and go for it? What would be contained in that?
What I want these kids to know, because I feel like they're the new generation, that you can do it, that you need to feel proud, that you have to work hard to make it happen. It's just not going to be given to you, that you can do it. You can fulfill your dreams. And part of how Performance Stars started, I was working at an agency in Marin City, and that agency decided to close, and I was without a job, and I was not ready to leave. And that's when I went to Ann Rogers at the Marin Community Food Bank and asked her to help me pull together this group organization to help these children. And she, along with 3 other founding board members, Virginia Spencer and Norma Howard and Dr. Mark Schillinger, was the founding board members. And we started with a 0 budget. And I just tell people, started with a 0 budget, a dream, faith, and prayers. I took a job then with the Marin Sheriff's Department, and I worked there for 5 years doing parking enforcement around the flea market in Marin City, so that helped.
You've probably written me a ticket.
I probably did, but I was the most friendliest ticket officer at that time. But that job sustained me while I was developing Performing Stars, and that also was a positive role model, I feel, for the kids in the community, because they would see me in uniform on the weekends, but then I was still the same person, because sometimes law enforcement, there's always us against them, but I think it was a bridge to connecting the community, that, you know, you could work for law enforcement, but you don't have to, you know, be unattached for them, to them.
You've talked about the family values that have been passed down. You've talked about the artistic values that you've gained from certain mentors. You've alluded to the spiritual values that you gained from the church. Tell me a little bit more about those and the place of the church in your life and in forming those values.
Well, with the church, like I mentioned, just growing up and listening to all this gospel music was already embedded, I feel, within my soul. And it was just a known fact that you went to Sunday school, that you participated in all the church activities, that you got up on Sunday mornings and that's what you did, period. It wasn't like, I don't want to go today, but I wanted to go. It's just something that you wanted to do, especially listen to the sermons, listening to the music. And that is the part of having that faith. And a lot of times I know that was a mission that was embedded in me to do what I'm doing now, because I know that I've had a lot of struggles in maintaining the organization. At times it wasn't easy doing a program like this in Marin City because I wasn't from there, but I made it a point to get to know the grandparents there, which I feel is the foundation of the community. And once they accepted you and it was for their grandchildren, then I knew that the program was going to survive.
And many of them shared those old Southern roots that you had brought out here with you as well.
Yes, because they also want to provide the best for their kids. And so they were like my buffer. They were the people who said, yes, they could come to rehearsal, yes, they can come to perform. In the beginning, I might not have had all the paperwork together for them, but you had to call them on the telephone and you know how to properly talk to them, and they'll send their grandchildren down. And then the kids will let you know if you're doing the right thing, because if you're not, then they're not going to participate. And to date, we have some kids that are 17 that started with me when they were 9. And now when they turn 14, we get them jobs at the Bay Area Discovery Museum. And that's another success story, because when I look at, that's the whole goal, that they become working people, that they want to work, but you have to start the work ethics very early. And
so they get the connection between the work and the dream.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then they can move on to other things. And I feel like this, again, is that new generation that's going to make that difference in the communities that we serve. And so a lot of these children, I know just from, a young age, so I feel like they're all my kids. And some of the kids that are 10 years old started with me when they were 3. So I have a long history with the children. And I'm like a drill sergeant to them, but I'm also like a stage parent, and they know that I really care, but I have high expectations of them.
You have had, so to speak, the legacy of great-grandmother, grandmother, mother handed on to you. Do you find that the kids these days tend to have the richness built into their early lives of knowing the stories that have supported them in the previous generations, or are they cut off from that?
Oh no, that is the part that I really love about the families that I deal with, especially in Marin City. And then you also look at the Canal area. And when you look at other families who might have moved from Marin City and Canal and other parts of the county, that they do have their grandmothers, their grandfathers, their aunts, their uncles. And so they have this tremendous support system that keeps everybody comfortable. And at this point, I have a 5-year-old son, and I know that if I need to go somewhere, that I can call several grandparents, I can call several friends, because he has godparents from all levels, from all cultures. And so, no, they have a very rich history and tradition of family.
Do you have a sense of being connected to that African proverb that's become so popular, that it takes a village?
Yes, I do. And I find that there are several villages when I look at all the variety of people that I deal with, from the Vietnamese families, the Hispanic families, the white families, and the black families. So I find there's several villages that I'm well connected to.
You're a woman who, from your early childhood, was motivated by dreams, ideas of what you could do. You're at a point now where all of Marin County has honored you as a Women's Hall of Famer in social change. What's the next dream on your horizon?
I would like to be able to travel to other cities, other communities, such as Marin City or the Canal, and set up a duplicate program, and they could call it Performing Stars of Colorado or Performing Stars of Oakland even, because what needs to happen is just the infrastructure to make that happen. All you have to do is be a liaison to know how to connect teachers, get the funding, and get the facility and the children. And once you get all those mixes together, I feel that these programs can be duplicated in many areas, and I feel like this could happen for affluent areas or low-income areas. I also would like to see those communities interact with each other more. One of my other dreams is to have a facility of performing stars that's based in Marin, a Performing Stars in Marin Academy, where kids of all races and backgrounds could just come together in one place, and they're all learning tap dance together, and they're all learning drill team, and they're all interacting with each other, and of course a charm school would be built into that, because kids these days, I think, need to know respect, more how to be appreciative, how to be humble, how to work together. So that is one of my main goals, especially as we approach our 10-year anniversary for the year 2000.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the beginnings of your dream and the continuations of them to today and further on. Thanks,
Thank you.
Felecia.